everybody. Welcome into our cinema snack for the month. And we're going to be doing a very fun show, something that was part of our childhood, actually. Shows you a little bit about our ages. We are going to be talking about The Breakfast Club.
Yes, this is such an iconic film all these decades later. It was released in 1985. It's a John Hughes film, probably considered one of his finest. And we just are interested in why is it enduring? Why do people relate to this film so much, regardless of when you were a teenager? So why don't we take a look at it? There's actually some kind of interesting dynamics in this.
Yes. So when we look at the analysis, let's make sure this is visible. Okay. We have the story cone here, the IED, and we were discussing, okay, you always look at who is the primary actor, who's the mover, the shaker, who's the one pushing the story along. And do we want to discuss?
Well,
I'm
yeah, I mean, like I came to the table with this discussion with Amy, and I'm like, this is a strong ensemble film. And I really wonder if this is one of those rare, true ensemble films where there isn't a primary actor because it just feels so equal. But Amy convinced me otherwise. So,
oh, I
yeah.
okay.
I still think that's very true, but you did convince me of a PA, and so you state your case. I think you're right.
Yeah, I would think it is John Bender, um, because he's the one that introduces this interruption in there. We accept our detention, that we are here for whatever we did wrong, and they all, I think, would have just sat there and did what Richard Burnham wanted them to do until John just starts picking at him, just punching him, just moving him, just making them uncomfortable.
He's definitely the disruptor, the agitator, and the mover and the shaker. So that also, I'm just going to jump ahead, but that also makes him the primary noise and chaos creator for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and he's the primary norm breaker. That's easy to see because
Yes.
he's the most antisocial and not most angry and wanting to shake things up and poke people and
So would you also say that he's the IED that was introduced into this world of, well, they did start their own stories in their individual stories.
so
They're the
I'm
norm breaking that got them there.
mhm. So I originally thought it was just the detention because they would not have been in the room so long together to have a conversation with each other without it. But I do also agree with you that John is the one who started the agitating because if I had been in detention all day, I would have just sat and read a book and done the assignment and whatever. And all this stuff would not have happened without John really agitating everything.
Yeah. But it is really interesting that it is such an ensemble cast. And because, this is when we go to that third level and we start saying, okay, let's look at Andrew's cone and his individual story. Let's look at Allison's. Let's look at Claire's and Brian's. Because those are the companion stories that are very critical to this story as an
Yeah.
ensemble.
Well, and so looking at the cone as it stands, I think that I agree with all of those positions. And John is a very strong character, but I do think that it doesn't accurately reflect the ensemble strength of this piece. So just to say, yes, it's John, but we do have five very strong stories that are equal in most regards.
Hmm. I would say so too. So we've left a spot here open.
Yeah, there's a few.
Is it John that we see this story through? Who is the target audience? Honestly, I think the majority of the general population of a school would most identify with this character. Maybe. I don't know.
I think that, well, this is again an argument for the how equal an ensemble it is, that I think it was designed so that everyone could have an in with whoever they were most like. And for me, I have a hard time finding myself in this, but probably Brian would be the one. Not that I was a great brain, but he's actually the kindest one in the room, and he seems the most normative. Obviously, they all have very serious issues, and it's not like Brian's got it all together by any regard. But I would say Brian would be my CVC in high school, because I can't really relate to. I wasn't a great athlete with all that pressure on me to, be perfect, and I wasn't I don't think I was unpopular, but I wasn't this exclusively popular person like Claire. I wasn't anything like Allison, and at all, and or I couldn't be farther away from John. So I think Brian would be mine. And then if we couple that, he actually does narrate the opening and the end with the two letters, the kind of before and after letter, we have an eternal narrator.
Which is really fun. That narrator that happens to also be a character within the story, which I think is lovely. And I do see parts of Allison in me just hiding, but I didn't do pixie sticks on my sandwiches or shake my dandruff into my
Yes. You weren't a kleptomaniac or a
no, no,
compulsive
no.
liar.
So yes, I do identify with Brian, who's just absolutely, all right. Would I have refused to acknowledge there's that point where John says, Carl the janitor comes in, and John says, "That's your dad," and Brian doesn't refute it. But
Well,
then
he
he
kind of
also
uses a
doesn't
little
take off his
bit.
jacket, or he puts his jacket back on because he happened to be taking his jacket off at the same time as John. He moves over when John kicks him out of the seat. I mean, he's always like,
He's getting pushed around.
yeah, yeah. So because that's always bothered me, because I've always thought that Carl, the janitor, was Brian's dad because he didn't
Ah,
refute it until we started analyzing it and going, wait a minute, that's totally
yeah.
a character for
It
Brian,
was just
not.
another poke from John. Yeah.
So let's look at that system then. What are we looking at? Oh,
We
we don't
were
have this
Mr.
much.
Vernon for sure.
Yeah, we've got Richard Vernon. Um, do we
And
have?
what's interesting is that he almost is akin. He's in the same general camp as Mr. Rooney in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but he's more, even though he is, a little characterized and everything, he is more human. He's not a black and white psychopathic school administrator like Mr. Rooney,
But he
and
has lost his way.
but
I
he
mean,
has this
because
lady
because
terribly
I see
flawed.
him as a moral reasoning level 3 to begin.
Yeah.
Just that's his profess. That's where he would place himself, and he would
Explain,
say
explain
that
the
he is.
moral. Yeah, explain level three.
So a level 3 is just the golden rule. It's just most of the population believes in being kind and and just doing your best. But he's lost his way and becomes
Yeah, he's
sour.
a flawed level three.
That exactly. So when he's caught looking in those confidential files, then he starts to bargain. He slips down to a 2. Like, oh, I don't tell it. You don't tell anybody. He tries to talk his way out of it. That's not going to work. Money.
Your
We
gut.
assume money got exchanged. But then after the discussion with Carl, what's Carl's position in here?
I think he's a safe character. I think
Yeah.
which is interesting to me about Carl, the safe character, is we're always talking about the relationship of the safe character to the norm breaker, and he is. In some way, he doesn't play a huge part, but he's the one he's the one normal person in the whole play. He's he seems okay with who he is, and he's not trying to be something he's not trying to put on airs. He doesn't seem ashamed to be a janitor. He just seems to be good with who he is, and he in some regards is a um a role model to the kids. But this is interesting to me, is I think he also serves as a safe character to Richard, And then the kids don't know, but he's kind of, because he's trying to help Richard be more human, he's that's the most best cushioning and safe character he's doing it. So it's not directly with the kids. It's almost they don't even really know. But I think he's giving him an insight, a power surge about that he's the one that's gone off the rails, not the kids. And we have a more human Richard Vernon at the end than we did at the beginning, and a hope that he's maybe going to be a little better. We don't know for sure, but we hope that he's going to be a little better.
And that's where I see, when he's a little bit more human, towards the end when they're just kind of sitting in the basement and talking, that I see Vernon actually stepping into the three in
Mm.
belief, not just lip service.
Okay, cool. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Because people get tested. Do you really believe, and would you follow the rules that you kind of think you live by?
Well, and people do get burnout. I mean, let's not forget what a
Oh
tough
gosh.
job being a teacher is. And people do get burnout, and you can lose some of your moral reasoning if you get pushed too long and too hard. And it's just nice. I just think that's a lovely moment where Carl just says, actually, they're not the problem, you are.
Yeah, yeah. And so we do have lots of hope. Now we didn't really discuss where. I mean, I kind of feel like the group of kids, except for John. John down here as norm breaking. I feel like the kids are right here to begin with. The rest of them, uh, Brian and Andrew and Allison and Claire, because they accept that they need to be there. And actually, John does. But John starts norm breaking right away. But
He
uh,
showed up.
yeah, they accept that they have to do time and have
Yeah,
nourishment.
yeah, they and Andrew says right at the, sorry, Brian says right at the beginning, we were brainwashed, and he's talking about how they see each other, but it's true, they're part of that system. I didn't even think about that. They're part of that system. That's brilliant, Amy.
Yes,
And they're just there. They're not happy that they're there. They're just there to jump through a hoop, but they are showing up the way the system has brainwashed them to show up.
so would we consider? So I'm just kind of struggling here at this point. Do the four come down and join John, but then they all kind of move into some conformity? Because it
Uh,
feels like they're
I
all
think
going to be better people. More in line with what Richard Vernon wants them to be. I
no. I say that they do come down. I agree with that. So let's definitely do an arrow down. They one at a time come down and they're joining John and they're being more real. And
all the way
so
down.
that I believe. I don't think they ever go back up. But so okay,
They go all the way down, actually. So
I'm gonna table your question and let's look at the hero moment and then I'm gonna come back to to
yes.
the question. Because I
So
need a hero moment to give my opinion on that one.
right. So I know we were discussing how we think it's kind of a 1-2 punch here. The first thing that happens is when they're sitting there discussing, and hey, we're all going to go back to just being our normal people. What happens on Monday? And well, yeah, I'm going to ignore you. They're called out on it in a very vulnerable moment by Brian.
Yep, I agree with that.
He's like, well, that sucks. That's not right, you guys. So all of a sudden they're going, oh,
Yeah, and he's saying I wouldn't do that, and he's just gonna say, "Are you gonna be that kind of person?" We all just follow along blindly with our friends just to go along to get along. But is that really who we want to be? And he really challenges them.
yep. And
That's a
so
favorite moment.
because of that, and nobody says anything, but what do we see?
Well, okay, so here's the ending that I say. I think it's a modern ending. And the reason why is because I think that we have the hint that things are going to be better. The one thing I think we know for sure is that they are not seeing each other the way they saw each other at the beginning of the day. And that's enough of a win. Like honestly, That's huge. Everyone's had power surges in this show. But do we really know if they're gonna be brave enough on Monday to like be best buddies and sit with each other in the cafeteria and have lunch
Which
together?
I don't think they're going to all sit together. But
No,
I
I
do
don't.
think there's going to start to be some shifts that they start, moving towards. They'll say, "Hey, Brian," or "Oh,
Mhm.
Claire, you look so good," and or well, no, Allison. Wow, Allison, come join us.
Yeah, possibly. We
And
just don't know because we don't see it. And I wouldn't put too fluffy of an ending on it. It's like
no,
it's
it would be sappy if we had done that.
yeah, it's enough that we know they see each other differently and they know better. And once you see something, you can't unsee it. So these kids are changed. Are they going to let the rest of the world see those changes? I don't. I think to differing, varying degrees. I hope, but I really don't. I don't. I can't give that an. I They didn't let us see it. So if we didn't see it,
Which
all we can do is guess,
Which,
right?
as you're saying this is where I'm like, okay, I 100% agree now with the modern ending.
Yeah.
Because I was like, yeah, but it's done, okay, maybe modern that's cushioned with a whole bunch of wins inside because we feel like all those romances are very much a win. And even Brian, he kind of loves himself. He's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but by keeping it open ended, by not having the sappy, everything's fine ending, John Hughes did a very good thing here.
You did
It
it.
put it into the audience's lap. Now they are the ones that have to make the change.
What are they going to do with this? How are they going to look at the
Yeah.
people around them in the halls on Monday at school? It's really brilliant. And so again, I'm going to say two things. They're oppositional in a way, but just that they're seeing each other differently at the end of the day is enough of a win for me. So there does feel like there's a win at the end, but I do think yes, and then we've got the whole group. And this is where we're going to see that the ensemble is important. Everybody's in the second win. It's not just Brian or it's not just John. We needed everyone to see differently at the end.
Yeah.
And so we have the whole group, the ensemble, at the number two, and the two spot in the hero function. So it's interesting because we're saying this is a modern story, yet we still have two heroes found at the end. So it's a bit of a modern mix or blend. And what we've decided to say is that it's a modern comedy. And that's because we do think everyone wins, but it's modern because is Richard Vernon going to act on his insight too or not? We don't really know. Are these kids going to act on the insights, or when I say insight, I mean power surges that they've
Mhm.
received? They've received some very internal, powerful moments, and what will they do with it? And the answer is, it's up to us to
Yep.
figure out
Which
what we're
is,
going to
and
do.
I feel like, I mean, usually the modern comedies are a little bit more stab you in the heart kind of things. I think this does, but we get those lovely parting moments. Claire gives John the earring. Um, Allison and Andrew are like a little starstruck, and I'm keeping this, his patch, and and of course Brian's little, you know, good job, man.
Yeah, and he did do a
so
good
I,
job.
so I do think technically still modern comedy. It's just we like to talk about continuums, and this is one of Wendy's ideas that I absolutely love, by the way. How we have this sliding scale of
Any
how
of
we
them.
feel on those stories, and we can talk about different kinds and types of stories that get that you change this thing and it moves it a little bit darker and a little bit darker and a little bit darker. Well, this one we get these little love shifts, love shifts, love shifts that make it a lot softer
Mhm,
for a modern comedy.
absolutely.
Because in
Well,
3 days in the country, nobody gets together. In this one, everybody
I,
gets together.
yeah, and again, then that makes me wonder if that's more of a modern drama than a comedy. It's just been too long since I've read it. We need to analyze that.
Yeah.
But but Richard Vernon is just such an interesting character for me, and while we don't know what he's going to do, that's why we've given it a no ending. we have a sense that he didn't sustain a huge loss.
No.
See, now if he had been conquered somehow by these kids or by the situation, then we would have had a more of a modern drama. But we have the sense that he has a chance to do something, and that's enough for me to also push that into the comedy realm because there's a sense that everyone could win here, perhaps.
Yeah, I agree. But
Anyway,
further inspection required. But
yeah.
this
Well,
is where we are at today, and I feel like it's a very good sense of the feeling that we're left with this
I
film.
think so. Yeah, we could totally change our mind in 2 years. Anyway, I don't think so. I think we're really close. The last thing I just want to say is that's important in analysis work is that the text, whether it's a movie script or the words in a novel, the text rules the analysis. It has to. So Amy and I can have all sorts of suppositions of what we think happens on Monday, or how we're seeing that feel good ending, or maybe one of us is not feeling as good at the end. All of that is information that we can look at, but we do have to, in the end of our analysis, go back to the actual text, and we do not see anything that happens beyond Saturday's detention. And so that tells us that on some level we've got a modern story. And so whenever we're confused or we're grappling with something that's a little bit more complex, we have to go back to the text. What we can't, it can't be our wishes or hopes or dreams for the story. It has to be what were we shown precisely, and that's all that we can analyze. And the rest is up to the audience. To you, we can all make our own personal, conclusions, and we will. But if we're doing analysis work, we need to stick to the text. Um, Anyway, I just want to say about this movie in the end that it really is rather unusual. I think John Hughes pulled off quite a masterpiece in doing such a strong ensemble piece with 5 characters. That's a lot of ask for the audience to track 5 people and not giving us a real clear in to that group. And he just does a beautiful job.
Much
So
better than I think any of his others. I think all of his others were trying to chase this one.
Probably. Yeah. So thank you for joining us today for the Cinema Snack. And we hope that you'll join us. We'll be posting this on our YouTube channel. So like and subscribe there. And we're just keep churning out content so that you can learn how to use the story code and apply it in your work.